the night John Wayne's smile could hide his tears. The studio lights of The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson were shining brightly that night, but somehow the room felt strangely quiet. John Wayne walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. The Duke, the man America had watched ride horses across dusty western landscapes, face danger without fear, and stand tall when everyone else stepped back. He smiled at Johnny Carson, but beneath that famous smile was a tiredness that few people could see. Johnny welcomed him warmly, and for a few moments the two men joked like old friends. The audience laughed. John Wayne delivered his familiar humor, and everyone seemed to forget that behind the legendary cowboy was a man who had lived through decades of triumph, loss, and heartbreak. Then Johnny asked him a simple question. "What keeps you going?" Wayne paused. For perhaps the first time that evening, the smile disappeared. He looked down for a moment. Then he quietly said that sometimes a man keeps going because there are still people who love him. The audience became silent. Wayne spoke about the years behind him, friends who had passed away, people he had loved, and the changing world he sometimes struggled to recognize. He remembered the young man he had once been, a man who dreamed of becoming a great actor, a man who never imagined that one day millions would know his name. His voice became softer. "I've had a pretty good run," he said. Johnny Carson watched him carefully. There was no joke this time, no punchline, just two old entertainers sitting beneath bright television lights, talking about life. Wayne admitted that fame could never protect a person from loneliness. You could have millions of fans and still miss one person who mattered most. He spoke about the people he had lost, and his eyes appeared to grow heavier. The audience listened without making a sound. Then Johnny gently changed the subject, trying to bring the warmth back into the room. Wayne smiled again. But it wasn't the same smile. It was the smile of a man remembering the past. The audience applauded. Wayne looked toward them and slowly nodded. For decades, America had seen him as invincible. But that night, they saw something different. They saw the man behind the legend. A father, a friend, an aging actor, a human being who understood that even the strongest cowboy eventually has to face the final sunset. Johnny Carson leaned toward him and said something softly that made Wayne smile. Wayne laughed. The audience laughed with him. And for a moment, the sadness disappeared. But as the interview continued, there was a feeling in the room that everyone understood without saying it aloud. Time does not stop for anyone, not even for the Duke. When the interview ended, the audience rose in applause. John Wayne stood slowly. He looked at Johnny Carson. The two men shook hands. Then Wayne turned toward the audience. He gave them that familiar smile. The smile they had seen in hundreds of movies. But this time it felt different. It wasn't the smile of a fearless cowboy. It was the smile of a man saying goodbye to a chapter of his life. As he walked away from the desk, the applause grew louder. Johnny watched him leave. And for a brief second, the legendary host looked emotional. Because everyone knew that legends may live forever on screens, but human beings do not. Years later, people would remember John Wayne as the towering symbol of courage. The cowboy, the hero, the Duke. But perhaps the most touching memory was not of him riding into the sunset. It was of him sitting beneath the bright lights of Johnny Carson's studio, letting America see the sadness behind the smile. That night John Wayne didn't need a horse, a six-shooter, or a movie script. He simply needed to be himself. And somehow, that was enough to break millions of hearts. Because the strongest people aren't always the ones who never cry. Sometimes, they are the ones who keep smiling while carrying a lifetime of memories inside their hearts. And when the lights finally faded, one truth remained. John Wayne may have been America's greatest cowboy, but beneath the hat and legend was simply a man who knew that every ride eventually comes to an end. Loudly broken, the Duke rode into history, but his memory never rode away.